Well, hello friends, it's good to be back with you again. We took a little time off last week just to, take a little breather during the holidays from this. We've actually ended up producing 230 videos of this Take 5 devotion since we started. And so last week we just took a little breather before the beginning of a brand new year. And that's where we are today. It's Monday. It is January the 2nd. It's a brand new year. And I want to say Happy New Year to all of you. I hope and wish God's best for you this year. Hey, let me say something real quick before we get into our discussion today. A lot of people do a lot of New Year's resolutions and things like that. And I've never been a proponent of those things. It's one of those things that I just don't see that's necessary because most people don't keep them. They mean well, they really do, but they don't keep them. However, I will say that our life needs a lot of checkpoints all along the way. And the beginning of a new year, that's a good time for a checkpoint. And when I say checkpoint, that is where we stop and we look at our life and we really, really analyze and consider where we are. We look at it prayerfully, we look at it spiritually, we look at it physically and financially. We just look at it and we make sure that we're staying on the course that we're supposed to be on. Because it's real easy to lag. It just is. Once you get started, it's kind of like we throw life and our relationship with God and service at church and our career and all this stuff. We throw it on, cruise control, autopilot as it were, and it's real easy to get to where we lag. So we need checkpoints, and the beginning of a year is a good one, but I would recommend don't just do it at the beginning of the year. All along the way, stop and have a checkpoint. Look at your life. Look at where you are with God. Look at where you are with your health. I really don't do a good job at that. I need to do better at that myself, but these are all things that we should be willing to look at along the way to see if we need to make some changes. And I guarantee you'll find out one thing: you do. Because as we go through life, it will never stop ceasing to be that we need to make changes as we go and grow and get older. We will. So don't just relegate that to a New Year's resolution. Let's have checkpoints all along life. And let's start right now at this brand new year, and let's look at our life and look at where we are. And since we're doing that, let's look at our faith, because that's what we're talking about again this week. The subject we've just entitled Living by Faith. Let's look at our faith and see, does it measure up to what the Bible said faith should be? Faith is one of those concepts that you can't describe in simply one word or one definition or one verse or one Bible story. You can't do that. And so what we're doing is taking the book of Hebrews and we're going through it almost completely verse by verse. That's called expository teaching and preaching, by the way. And that's just not my style. My style is topical, pick a subject and break it down and preach on it. That's what most preachers do. So expository teaching and preaching is different. It really doesn't have a rhyme or reason that the things that you're talking about. You just go through verse by verse and you say, this is what this verse says, and that's what this verse says, and this is what the Bible's teaching us here. And so that's what we're doing, because Hebrews 11, I believe, is a beautiful snapshot, a panoramic view of what God intends for faith to be. Hebrews 11:1 says that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. By it, the elders obtained a good report or commendation. When you read that passage, you learn that these words just simply mean that these men and women were well known for their faith. They were approved and recognized by God and man, and their lives were a testimony of what faith was to be to the world. The Message Bible actually puts verse 2 in the best words I think they could be. It says, the act of faith is what distinguished our ancestors and set them above the crowd. Faith is really supposed to set us apart. It is supposed to distinguish us from the rest of the world because we know that God will respond to faith, that God's Word brings answers according to our faith. And we know that's what makes us different from the rest of the world. And let me tell you something. Contrary to popular belief, the rest of the world needs to see that we are different than them. They really need to see that. And faith is the biggest place that can happen. When the world looks at the church today, I wonder, do they see this kind of faith? More so than that, I wonder, does God see it when He looks at the church today? I'm not talking about faith that got an answered prayer, or got a healing, or got a blessing. I'm not talking about that kind of faith. I'm talking about a person of faith that is willing to do things that others were not willing to do. A person that is willing to hold on when others let go. A person that is willing by faith to say things that others won't say. A person who is willing to follow when others will not. A person who will stand when others turn away. That's the kind of faith that we're talking about. The Bible teaches us that faith should be an everyday occurrence in the life of a believer. It's something that we should apply and put our hands on each day. Faith is supposed to wrap itself around our daily lives, our marriages, our jobs, our health, and everything in between. It's supposed to be an everyday occurrence, and the Bible tells us this no less than 4 times. It says, the just shall live by faith. So we need to understand that the faith that we were saved by is the same faith that we are supposed to live each and every moment of our lives by. Galatians chapter 2, verse number 20, Paul says, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ that lives me. And I love this. Here it is. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith. Do you see what he's saying? The life I live in the flesh, my everyday life, I live by faith in the Son of God that loved me and gave Himself for me. So we're not saved by one faith and healed by another faith and prospered by another faith. Ephesians chapter 4 says there's one body, one Spirit, one Lord, and one faith. So here's the good news. If you have faith to be saved, then within you lies the ability to have faith to believe God for everything else. Now, emotions can hinder your faith. Doubt might stand in your way. Living in willful sin will absolutely corrupt your faith. When you don't understand God's will and God's timing and God's ways and God's mean, that will interfere. If you don't have a working knowledge of the Bible, that will definitely halt the work of faith in your life. But if you can manage to put all these things in order in your life, every person that is born again, every person watching this video, or every person that heard this sermon when I preached it yesterday, you have the ability to believe God's promises regardless of how great they are. You have the ability to have that kind of faith. The devil just doesn't want you to know it, but if you will apply God's Word, if you will look at this picture of faith from Hebrews 11 and from the rest of Scriptures, and we will begin to mimic that, I'm telling you that there is nothing that your faith cannot accomplish. Well, hey, I got to get out of here. It's been good being with you today. I look forward to being with you tomorrow on Tuesday's edition of Take 5. Until then, God bless you. Have a great day. Remember, friend, trust the Lord. He will never fail you.